Who do you think is more likely to take out the trash? The husband, who every time he takes out the trash, his wife thanks him and praises him for doing so, or the husband that every time the trash isn't taken out, the wife punishes him for not taking out the trash, and then when he does, she really says nothing? Which one do you think is more likely to take out the trash again? Probably the husband whose wife reinforces the fact that he just took out the trash. Mary Kay Ash has said there's two things that people want more than sex and money, and that is recognition and praise. Recognition reinforces behavior. The more you reward someone or recognize a behavior they're doing, the more likely they are to do that thing again and again and again. There are two ways to get people to do things: punishment and there's praise. I think I was like 21 or 22. I worked at a big Globo gym. The first manager I had was fantastic. He always was rewarding us and congratulating us on our success, and he very seldom used punishment to direct our behavior. Because of that, we were the top performing gym in the entire state. When he left and a new manager came in, all he did was yell at the entire team and inflict fear in us. He told us what would happen if we didn't hit quota and if we didn't bring in new clients, which was basically fire us, if we didn't do what he wanted us to do. What I saw over the next few months, one, I left, but two, what people did before they left is they took their clients, slowly sifting their people from the gym, getting them to go to private facilities and doing it all behind his back. We went from the top performing gym to one of the lowest performing ones in the region under his leadership. People were more scared of the consequences that he would inflict if they didn't do what he wanted them to do than they were excited to do things because they were recognized for what they did right. Punishment may temporarily cause compliance by somebody, but they will find ways to avoid punishment and not do what you want them to do. And so what really happens is that that employee, that kid, that teammate gets more skilled at avoiding punishment than doing the job how you want them to do it. The kid learns how to make his room look clean by hiding all the clothes under the bed rather than actually cleaning his room. The employee learns how to make it look like they did a full day's worth of work rather than actually doing a full day's worth of work. If we want to get people to work harder, we need to reward them rather than punish them. Listen, this was not something that I understood when I first started a business. When we started Gym Launch, I was a very soft boss. People told me, Layla, there need to be consequences when people don't follow the rules. We need to have performance improvement plans. We need to have disciplinary action. And I really believed it. I kind of let those outside influences affect how I treated my team. And what I saw from that was a culture of fear. And so I've really changed my mind about how I coach our CEOs in acquisition.com, how I coach our team, how I lead my team, because I just don't believe that leading with threatening and consequences and punishment is going to help anybody. Real discipline should look like teaching. The more that we can recognize people, reward people, and put our focus on what they do right, we will get more of it. How can this be applied to your business? In workplaces that have formal recognition and reward programs, this is what they see. It reduces employee turnover by 18%. It increases profitability by 23%. It increases employee engagement by 14%. And it increases your ability to recruit talent by 56%. This is the real stuff that builds an enduring business and a good business. So then the question becomes, how do we actually deploy this practice? Because I think most people have been taught how to punish employees. So much effort's being put into preventing the negative that it's not being put into producing more of the positive. And the irony of that is if you try to produce more of the positive, the negative will dissipate. So what I want to share with you is my framework for driving a culture of reward and recognition. People work harder because they want to work harder. So there's really four pieces to a recognition formula as I see it. So the first piece is the what. What are we rewarding? What are we recognizing? There's really two types of recognition. The first one is one that you've probably heard of, which is formal. This might be Employee of the Month, MVP of the Year, Most Improved. This is standard and I don't think it's bad. I tend to lean more towards instant recognition. The faster you can recognize or reward a behavior, the faster that person will improve and the more they'll adhere to doing it. It is as simple as a Slack message or a high five. In fact, this is crazy. A high five in general, there have been studies on this, actually produces more dopamine in somebody's brain than saying any kind of affirmation to them can. Send them a handwritten card, buy them lunch, send them a virtual gift card. Anything where you can instantly get it to that person. And even better is if you can do it like in the moment. So somebody, for example, on my team does a presentation. I know they're nervous. I want them to do more presentations because I want them to get over their nervousness. Immediately after the presentation's done, I'm going to be telling them how much they're doing a good job. And not even so far that, I will tell them in the middle of their presentation. I'll send them a private message and tell them they're doing a good job. I can give you another example right now. You know what's happening in the corner over here is Caleb is just nodding his head, giving me reinforcement that the content I'm making is good. So the more that we can do that, we can give people feedback in the moment, the more likely they are to do the behavior. This is, in my opinion, the most important piece of the formula of recognition. People assume the worst if you don't give them feedback. The same goes for your employees, your teammates, or your kids. If you say nothing, they assume it's bad, because that's what our brains are wired to do. The second piece to giving recognition, giving reward, is the who. There's really three types of a who in a business. There's manager to employee, there's employee to employee, and then there's employee to manager. If you're looking at building a more resilient organization, an organization where it's a culture of positivity, those cultures often have all three of those figured out. Because if you have a culture where it's just the manager telling the employee that they do well, well, then that employee's wondering, do the rest of the team think I do well? I don't think that people understand how meaningful peer feedback is, not just from the manager to the employee. Even more so, what a lot of people don't think about is employee to manager. Bosses tend to like those who reinforce them the most. Bosses tend to get very little recognition. People never tell them what they do right, what they do wrong, but the reality is bosses will spend more time with the people who reinforce them. You can train them to spend more time on you, to pay more attention to you, the more that you recognize and reward them. And then the last one is really peer-to-peer. And the reason that this one is so advantageous is if you're trying to move up in an organization, it means that you have to gain influence. I would never move someone up in an organization who hasn't earned the respect of all of their peers. We had a woman in our software company, and she was head of customer success, and she was so good at recognizing behavior. When the time came that I was going to give her promotion, the entire team had already come to me and said she needs to be promoted. All she did all day, every day, was recognize and reward people for what they did. She would send them cookies, send them flowers. She had influence over everyone in the organization because of how she treated them. The third piece is the when. When do you recognize or reward behavior? Obviously, instant is what we want, but I think it's really important to pay attention to what is the thing that occurs that we want to reward. Do you reward a salesperson for closing a sale, or do you reward them for following a script? Which is more important? If we reward them for closing a sale, they might be more incentivized to find ways to close a sale without using the system, and that actually might lead to people signing up and not being good clients. Why? They might use tactics that are not advantageous to the company to close people. Where you rewarded people for following the script, then you're probably going to get better clients. Are you rewarding the outcome or the action? If you reward actions and you don't get the outcome you want, and everybody on a team is doing those actions, it's not the team, it's the action. So we can just change the action. You want to reward people for the actions, or what I would say is like winning behaviors that will eventually lead to the win. The last piece of this is the how. How are you giving the reinforcement? Studies have shown that the more physical you can get with the reinforcement, that sounds weird when it comes out, the more that you can emulate an in-person, a high five, a hug, you've got this. People get so much feedback from people doing something in person. The more that you can do it in a way that is visual, you're lighting up, you show body language to the person, the better it is. Nothing is going to feel better to that person than being on a Zoom call with you or being in person with you and you having a big smile lit up, telling them they did a fucking awesome job, giving them a high five. At the end of the day, it is the easiest thing. It costs you the least amount of money, and yet it is the thing that people do the least. For the next 2 weeks, pick one thing that you're gonna recognize people for, decide how you're gonna recognize them, when you're gonna do it, how you're gonna do it, try to repeat that over and over again. I promise you, you will see results faster than you think.